This is Shirley with Spirit of Matter here from Israel, southern Israel. So this is an evergreen episode about Mercury in Sagittarius. So I'm going to do an evergreen teaching about the Mercury in Sagittarius, natal and transit. And then if I still have stamina, then I'm going to talk about the passing transit of Mercury in Sag. Mercury, which is now close to Antares. This is the Mercury day, okay, about to turn into a Sol night, and this is Sol hour. So, yes, you could really say that this is already Sol hour and Sol night, but Sun is on 22nd degrees of Scorpio as per this episode, conjuncting Mars, and this is about to go Kazimi. We literally are 2 astrological minutes from it's not Kazim, it's actually combust, the conjunction of Sun and Mars. Ascendant is Venus ruled at 28 degrees of Taurus, with Venus in 7 degrees Libra, sextiling this Mercury in Sagittarius. And the midheaven is in 11 degrees Aquarius, ruled by Saturn in 0 degrees Pisces. Okay, Moon at 20 degrees Sagittarius, squaring Neptune and trining the North Node, and also separating from a trine to Chiron. So, very interesting. Let's talk about Mercury in Sag. Okay, so Mercury, what does Mercury rule? Mercury rules doorways. It rules passages from one realm to the other. So it's the doors that you have between the rooms at home or your front door, and also the windows, okay, fenster. This is also the gate or the passageway. And this is true also in spirit and matter. When a person crosses over, Mercury is the psychopomp, okay, it's the one that escorts the person into the other realm, or some people say the underworld or the world of the dead. Mercury, therefore, is associated with transitions. It is adaptable. It doesn't have its own temperature like other planets, but it adjusts its temperature according to the planets that it is conjuncting or in the vicinity of. So Mercury has the tendency to be good with good and bad with bad. It governs the nervous system as well. Okay, one of the rules of nervous system, therefore also rules the skin together with Saturn. Okay, if the skin as boundary is Saturn, the skin as stress levels is Saturn, and the skin as nervous system, which is a part of stress levels, is Mercury. Mercury also rules children. Okay, and if you think about the playfulness of a child, what happens when we cross from this place that we know to that place that we don't know, okay, which is ruled by Mercury. We basically try something, then try something new until we cross that gate. So children very much the mercurial traits of curiosity, playfulness, trying time and time again until a child learns how to walk, okay, is trying over, being inventive, and of course transition and change. Okay, so if you think about Mercury as doorways, transitions, change, you also think about the malleability of change and the inconsistency of change. Mercury rules Virgo and Gemini. Both are tropically the changing of the seasons. Okay, in September, and it really doesn't matter which hemisphere you live on. Because if you live in Australia, you're just changing from winter to summer. If you're living in Europe, you're changing from summer to winter. And so traditionally, both June and September, which are associated with tropical Virgo and tropical Gemini, are associated with transition phases. Okay, it's not March, which is half Pisces, and the second, kind of like the latter half, or the latter half would be Aries, but it definitely is a changing of the seasons. And so when you think about climate change, okay, this is a video that I'm recording in 2023, in November 2023, okay? So when you think about climate changing, when you think about children, and you think about childhood, and you think about doorways, so you understand that that stage for when a child grows, okay, if it is not given time to try and fail, to perhaps not have that as much responsibility as an adult, then the child, we say, mature too early. So this is like going from summer to winter. Okay, no childhood, no trial and error, no playing outside. And in times where humanity had no childhood, okay, then we also had diseases, a lot of diseases, which we know is also Virgo ruled. Okay, Virgo rule in the intestines, Gemini the shoulders, the hands, the ears, and also communication. Okay, think about children when they begin to speak. So when a child begins to speak, everybody is so excited, and they usually say something that's almost undecipherable. And that is Mercury as the ruler of communication. Okay, it's where we're trying to connect with one another, and therefore it also rules language. Okay, so it's a lot about trying and failing, which is also communication. Trying again, applied skill. Okay, what do children do? They're doing, they have stages. Okay, okay, so there's a stage where they begin to put everything in their mouth. So they take it with the hands and put everything in the mouth, and they want to touch everything, sense everything, taste everything. So part of that is Taurus. And then as they begin to become more verbal, they basically, well, I don't know, like all the I'm not like majoring in child development or anything like that, but as they begin to become more verbal and begin to become like even more playful, they're able to open something and close something. Even when you have pets or something like that, it's when that stage where you start to open the drawer, to open the door. Okay, so it's not just kind of like the Taurus where they take something on the floor, something on the couch and put it in their mouth. But with Gemini, it's kind of like they're cracking safes already, okay? They're cracking safes already. Actually, Richard Feynman had a Ketu in Gemini in the 10th house. And he was very known for many things, for his skills, for having multiple skills with Gemini, okay, to try many things, but also for cracking safes. Literally, he was known for being able to crack safe, which was also a joke. Okay, and then there is the other side of Gemini, which is the silliness, the jokingness, the lightheartedness. And Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. It's more about that lightheartedness, jokingness. With Virgo, it can be more stingy, okay? The humor can be a bit more, well, I want to say, it can be sarcastic, but more sharp, okay? So, but with Gemini, okay, Mercury is Gemini ruler, it can be a humor that is naive and innocent, at least as a child, until the child learns that it has to lie. Okay, we don't let a child express everything, because then they would just offend us all over the place. Okay, and they ask everything. They're just curious about everything, and they don't mean anything bad. And then they learn from adults, and then that childlike lies when they understand that, hey, somebody's going to get mad at me. I'm going to get repercussions for saying that, for doing that. And then they start lying. And Mercury also rules lies. Okay, it rules jokes and it rules lie. So a joke could be considered a truth hidden in a lie, but because Mercury is so skillful and so technical, it's not necessarily about a joke that is gaslighting. It can literally be enjoying the humor in things. So sometimes you don't mean to laugh at someone, but you just find some situation funny. Okay, it can be that kind of humor, so like technical humor. So technical skill, communication, childlike curiosity, innovation. Okay, trying again. It's not the innovation of Aries, but it's more like the process of trying time and again to do something. A playfulness and exchange, okay, of words, doorways, passages, changes, changing of the season or climate change, okay, because it's also fumbling with the ecosystem, because technical skill. It rules therefore also media or social media, technology, okay, it's the product of this trial and error and applying skill, applied science, very mercurial. I talked about Feynman. He was known for having multiple skills and for cracking safes. So with Ketu in the 10th house in Gemini and ascendant Virgo, by the way, okay, both Mercury ruled. And now we have Mercury as contracts, which is more the Virgo side. Mercury as herbs, as magic, as knowing how to mingle things and discerning. So if in Gemini you play around with things, in Virgo you have the specificity. Okay, I had a Virgo teacher for aromatherapy. It was a fascinating experience because everything would have to have an explanation, a frequency, at this, at that. I'm like, fuck, it's energy. Okay, but this is the Virgoian more maturity of this Mercury. Okay? It's the magician, it's the alchemist, it's the herbalist, it's also the chemist. Okay, it's the Virgo that already knows something about something. If in Gemini you're just curious about, like, why are they spraying the skies, in Virgo you're like, did you know that the same chemical product they use in the sky right now in these dosages was used in a lot more concentrated dosages in the showers of the Nazis, where they sent the Jews, and not only the Jews, LGBTQ and all that. I was like, oh, did you know? That's more of a Virgo thing, to know that particular detail and the concentration and the dosages and the chemical component. Okay, the Virgoian humor would more be like programmer's humor, but even more so that if you think about the joke about there was a broadcast on the radio that scared people, and it says you have to beware of what's coming out of your faucets. There is hydrogen, no, yeah, by like oxygen by hydrogen. Oh, the heck with that. I don't remember how to say it. It's 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen, and I ruined the entire joke. You can see I'm out of Virgo in any way, shape, or form. It's my 7th house. So anyway, people got startled. This is the H2O. It's basically the water coming out of your faucets. It has a very Virgo line, but another Virgo line, the Richard Feynman, telling people what is this strange ceremony of people brushing their teeth, and me, a Jupiter ascendant in midheaven, thinking, what is he talking about? What has he got against brushing teeth? But he was trying to display to people that the fluoride that they tell you is recommended in your toothpaste is basically poison that was from the Industrial Revolution, put in the A-bomb, but after the A-bomb, after Manhattan Project, they didn't know what to do with it, so now you have it in the water, in the food, and in your toothpaste as recommended stuff, which is worse than a satire. But the Virgo Mercury knows, and it tries to tell you that. It's like, hey, look at what are the components, what are the chemical components that you're being marketed that as medicine. Okay, so Mercury rules both the process of gaining skill and also the professional chemist, the professional alchemist, and it in that way it also associated very heavily with astrology, with magic, with looking at all these strange components. Here, for example, a beginner astrologer, when they tell you, can you guess my sign? You're gonna like, oh, I'm gonna ask you a lot of questions. I'm gonna this, I'm gonna that, and see if I can guess your sign. And a more professional astrologer will tell you, well, listen, let's just say, your brown hair. Okay, you know how many yogas can produce brown hair in a person's like visibility? And so this is more a Virgoian answer, which like I just can't do it because there's just so many things that could end up as this output, and their input is so different. So all of that is Mercury, okay? And Mercury, because it rules communication, exchange, and alchemy, okay? Then it also rules contracts. And essentially, what does alchemy have to do with contracts? Well, when you move into or buy a house, okay, let's say you buy land and you buy a house, okay, there is an existential gap between you and the person who sells this house to you. Plus, there are interests, plus, there are many things involved, and an actual contract that you both agree on and respect is a literal alchemical act of magic. Okay, to actually understand each other, to actually agree on something, and to actually respect that is magic. Okay, it's so rare because everyone is so unique and every person has such a different meaning. Okay, if you say the word freedom in China, you're probably meaning being happy with what you have. If you say the word freedom in the United States, you probably don't mean that. Okay, maybe some places where people already have, a couple of acres, their own housing, their own this, their own that. Tell them the word freedom. Tell them, well, don't take our guns, and we're free. Okay, it's just so different across people. So, and the word freedom kind of connects me to Sagittarius. Okay, so after we talked about Mercury, Sagittarius. Sagittarius, and immediately my attention is to the smell of incense that I smell from one of the houses, one of the floors here, which smells very good. and indeed, if you think about breathing in, which is a part of communication here with the air that we breathe in and our lungs, then you already think about Jupiter, which is the ruler of Sagittarius. Okay? So Sagittarius is, well, let's talk about the symbol, the graphics, or the picture, which is a very mercurial term, as Mercury rules things you do with your hands, small things, pictures as well. I could go for an hour on Mercury now, because Jupiter expands on something. I'm talking about Mercury, and Mercury is in Sagittarius, so I'm expanding more so than usual. And so, Sagittarius, well, this is basically a man that is half a horse, half a man, and it has a bow and arrow. Okay, so if you think about the ascendant of United States being, I believe it's 12 or 17 degrees Sagittarius or 16 degrees Sagittarius, and you think about the concept of freedom as we are entitled to own guns, which you wouldn't expect, but Sagittarius comes after Scorpio, which is ruled by Mars that rules guns. But the thing is that this horseman has its animalistic, horse, which is also powerful, but noble as well, and half man, unlike Gemini and Virgo, which are completely human. So it has a bow and arrow, which is a weapon. You hunt with the bow and arrow. You protect yourself with the bow and arrow. So the symbol for Sagittarius is actually what we would think quite Marsy. It is about protecting something. And protecting what? And Sagittarius also rules actually our thighs, our butt as well. Our hips, and basically it's kind of like pretty much the center of gravity, together with Libra, of course, which is the lower back. And the posture of freedom, of protecting, and Sagittarius is most connected with freedom. When you think about the symbol, is actually about a god of war. The freedom fighter. And there's something very sexual about this whole presentation. That is both the kind of like eroticism of animalistic prowess, the human form, the kind of like bodacious man that holds a weapon that requires skill to operate, which is the bow and arrow. When you stretch a bow and arrow, basically you have to pay attention to your hips, the location of your hips, because when you stretch it, you use the arms and you use the hips to position you, of course the feet as well, so that everything is just pointed, and all you have to do is to shoot is to release. Shooting as release. If you think about a gun where you push the trigger, which is more Scorpionic, you perform a certain action. Here, you're actually doing the action of letting go. So you're pointing the arrow with focus, which is another Sagittarius quality, Jupiterian quality. I'm focused on what I desire to achieve. I fix my posture that is in spirit, my ideas, my head, and my hips, my physical and my mental, to align, which is a very Jupiterian word, to align myself, my body, physically, mentally, everywhere, so that I'm like a tool, I'm a vessel, that I don't stand in the way, because as I release this arrow, it just hits the goal. I release and I grab. I release and the arrow hits the goal. It's a hunting position. So we have the hips, which is Jupiter, which is Sagittarius, and then we have the hands and the shoulders, the kind of position of the upper torso. This is a very holistic position to be at, where you require both the Jupiterian skill of focusing that aligns the body with the hips. Your hips have to be in tune with your mind, basically, and operate. So all that you've left, you hold the portrait almost like a statue, is to release the arrow and then hits the goal. Okay, so whatever we think of Sagittarius, and if you read like a pop astrology, cookbook, which can be very useful. Okay, it's just like if you had to summarize Sagittarius in what words, like freedom, philosophy, gurus, know-it-alls. But when you actually delve into the nitty-gritty of it, you see that this is still a war sign. It's a fire sign, and it's about such focus and presence of body and soul that is beyond Scorpio. Okay, so because it's the sign after Scorpio, more than Scorpio. You like a hashtag, more than Scorpio. It's very focused on a goal and achieving this goal. And it's not fixed, it's mutable. Because Sagittarius is a mutable sign. And so you think about surfing. There's a wave, and then there's another wave, and then there's another. But here it is a fire sign. And what is a mutable fire? Think about a fire that spreads across a field. And so we have a very interesting concept of freedom here that is about a fire that spreads across a field, hunting, and basically taking care of survival to ensure sustainability and what the Sagittarius concept is of freedom. It's aligning the grip and releasing the grip. Okay, it's the tension between having a grip over something and releasing that grip. Is very focused, and it's, if we think about the mutable sign, there is always another goal in the horizon that we realign ourselves to. So we have this again and again thinking of the other side, the other polarity, which is Gemini. So Sagittarius, that is ruled by Jupiter, is ruling freedom. And yet it's a particular concept of freedom. You just say, if you would let any one of the 12 signs define freedom, not all of them, Taurus might define it as ease, sensual. But what would Taurus say sensual is not necessarily what Scorpio says sensuality is. Okay? And then the Sagittarius is comfortable around discomfort, perhaps. Okay? The discourse between Sagittarius and, let's say, a Taurus. Okay, it's an inconjunct. So we talked about the mind and the body, and the animal body and the human mind. So it's also about the duality, okay? Not just Pisces, not just Gemini. There is a duality in form and essence with the human and the animalistic. We do have a representation of a horse and a man in one. Okay, I'm an animal and I'm a man. Okay, but it could be a woman, of course, but the symbol is I'm an animal and I'm a man. I have to get a hold of what's between my hips. Okay, I have to get a hold of that to be free, so that I can align myself and release my fire constructively. is a very masculine sign. Um, it is also a sign that is invigorated by the chasing of goals. Okay, it's very goal oriented. It's not afraid of having another frontier. If you think about frontiers in science, frontiers in, I don't know, whatever, science pretty much says it all, okay? It's a frontier. It's the existence of the desire, okay? Court nature and she will reveal her secrets to you. There's a lot of many things, but a lot of Sagittarian eroticism of not just the mystery, but that which requires alignment and attuning to basically conquer. Okay, unravel is more scorpionic. Okay, with Sagittarius there is a conquer, there is a conquest, and then after it made a conquest, it goes to a new frontier. Okay, so you see how it's incompatible with, let's say, a Scorpio or an Aquarius or a fixed sign or a fixed fire sign, that kind of like, well, I conquered, this is mine, I'm not letting this go, versus I caught the fish, I let it go back to swim in the river because I enjoy the process of attunement to you, the conquering you, and the reattunement. So you have to change your position relative to the Sagittarian in order to still be relevant. And right now, as Mercury almost aligns itself with Antares, if you think about the Valhalla song, again, Antares is the nature of Mars and I believe Jupiter. If you think about the Valhalla song, okay, each horizon is a new frontier, rise and reign. Okay? It's a very Sagittarian. It's not just Marsy. The horizon, that which is infinite, okay, another Jupiter, expansion, and having each horizon is a new frontier, okay? So it's something very warlike, a fight for freedom, a fight to discover the truth, to expose the truth, and the truth is changing all the time. So we keep getting this perpetual progress. Okay, it's not cyclical in the way that the moon is cyclical, or in the way that Scorpio is cyclical. This is slowly but surely turning into one of my best evergreen episodes ever. So it's not cyclical in those ways, but it is cyclical in the sense of I conquered, I'm letting go. And something else caught my eye. I tune myself, I conquer, I'm letting go. Something else caught my eye. And there we have already the connection with Mercury. If you think about philosophy and the scientific endeavor, it's very much, what's the truth of this universe? I tune myself, I unravel, well, unravel is not as much as Sagittarius, but I tune myself to truth, I teach the truth. And something else catches my eye, some other details, some other point of view, and I'm like, I tune myself to it. Oh, now this is the truth. I have a whole new teaching. Okay, as a natal 10th house Sagittarius, I have been changing jobs like, like that. And astrology is constantly changing in front of my eyes. I'm constantly having this invigoration where it's like, oh, you can look at it from that point of view. And then there's this point of view, and there's that point of view. And so I don't get bored by astrology. I also have Uranus in the 10th house, okay? So that place of the changing of the truth from a very deep philosophical attunement, holistic place that eventually is playful, is where this Mercury, or the polarity of Gemini, okay, because Gemini is in front of Sagittarius, and Sag connect. It's kind of like before enlightenment chop wood, after enlightenment chop wood, but more interesting to the wood chopper. Okay? Before enlightenment, you're playing with things just because you're so curious. After enlightenment, you're playing with things and retrieve your childlike curiosity because you understand that the entire quest for the higher truth is children play. Now, if you think about war as a similar thing, then you can perhaps philosophically reconcile the war into a play rather than an actual reality, which is ridiculous in this play when you actually fight each other is very ridiculous. Okay, and retrieve yourself the lightness that comes with the Gemini. Now Mercury and Sag. Okay, it's the evergreen child. Okay, Jupiter that rules Sag is also ruling children. Okay, it's the evergreen child. There is always something that catches my eye and it's out there. I have to attune myself to conquer the truth. How silly is conquering the truth? All I have to do to get there is release. Okay, if you think about the arrow that moves and shifts time, it moves very quickly. It's kind of like you're shape-shifting, you're shifting time, shifting timelines. Okay, all I have to do is release. And I'm where I want it to be. Not you, the arrow. You actually have to walk the mile. Okay, so that juxtaposition of truths and lies that is Mercury Sagittarius. Okay, there is truth in this lie. There's a lie in this truth. Is Mercury Sagittarius. Mercury is about small things, the details. Sagittarius is about making something big. So this can also be a small detail becomes big. Okay, you could have the paintings with big hands. Okay, is Mercury Jupiter. Okay, Mercury Sagittarius can have big hands, wide shoulders, big ears as well. Okay, so it's also Mercury. Focusing on something that seems like a tiny detail and expanding it, which is how Mercury begins to be in detriment in Sagittarius. Okay, in detriment because if Mercury rules Gemini, then it is in front of the sign that it rules, it is in detriment. And you can see if Jupiter is the big picture, then it's kind of like, well, I thought about this great philosophy of freedom and how I'm going to build my home in the complete desert and we can make it fertile. And Mercury is Gemini. In Gemini, it's kind of like, I had this picture in my mind and I'm trying to sell this philosophy to the first person that I meet. And the first person that I meet is a person on a wheelchair that has been a beggar in the streets and speaks a language different to mine. Okay. And I'm like, that's the first person that I meet. I said what I said, I do what I do. Okay. Or alternatively, changing. Okay. So who is the next person that I meet? And the next person that I meet is a person that tries to convince me to convert to their religion. You know, I've got a lot to talk about because they're already arguing with me. Now I have to convince them of my point of view or learn from them or both. And so Mercury Sag is dual because it is both enjoying the mundane act of communication, enjoying gaining skills. Okay, there's a lot of joy in gaining skill. Everything becomes big, every detail becomes big. The colors of the sky, and you can expand on gratitude. Okay, if you take the word gratitude as a word, as a Mercury, then you can expand on gratitude. Then there could also be that expansiveness and taking a look at the big picture that is now becoming a detail, a word, something somebody said. Okay, it becomes like an inspirational quote. And when that is to do with public speaking, it might not be as problematic than when you actually have to perform a task, especially if it's a mundane task. Okay? If you were a child and you have to, let's say, wash the dishes, then you make it something playful and you have your own arrangement of it and you're good to go. But with Jupiter, you are wanting to write the novel. Okay, I was watching, and immediately I get a Robert Greene because I was watching the short by Robert Greene. He celebrated 25 years to 48 Laws of Power. And he said, when I wrote 48 Laws of Power, I wanted people to read this book in 500 years. And he said, kind of like the Machiavelli. I don't even remember the title of the Machiavelli book, okay? So he said, I wanted people to read it again in 500 years, and I was celebrating 25 years of that. And of course, he had this triangle ring with the infinity symbol on it. Okay, I don't remember which finger, which hand. So he made a special edition of it. Okay, so you think about how is my a daily routine, the words that I say, the skills that I develop, aid me in a legacy that people will look at 500 years from now. Okay, go get that person to do the dishes. I am that person. It is more unconscious because I just don't understand why it happens to me. Okay, but that is how, when I talked about the before enlightenment chop wood, after enlightenment chop wood. Okay, then this is the place where Mercury is about developing skill, trying again, and Jupiter is about that great legacy. You need both Mercury and Jupiter. Okay, but you kind of want them to meet in a trine situation, in a sextile situation. When Mercury is in Jupiter's house, it can feel very small. It feels like a baby painting its first picture and trying to hang it in the Museum for Fine Art alongside with Da Vinci's picture. How embarrassing it would be if that picture is no less beautiful than Da Vinci's. And so we can also get the very skilled young artist because Jupiter expands on a skill. And when it comes to contracts, okay, you think about the Declaration of Independence. Okay. So Mercury, Gemini. Mercury Sagittarius. Okay, I write a small segment of something that has a legacy of so and so years, so 100 years, hundreds of years. Mercury Gemini, however, if you think about, a small paper that you have to abide by 500 years later, it's kind of like a few centuries later, people are mass shooting each other and, not invoking the second when they are evacuated, but mass shooting each other for no reasons in schools, mind you. Okay? And so history changes, and Mercury is adaptable, but when you have a small paper or a small contract, it is supposed to be suffice for the next millennia, then you run into troubles. Okay, and this is an inherent tension. An inherent philosophical tension of applied science. Before we even go to all the foul interests and everybody perhaps creating mass shootings, so to take the guns from people, before we even have that, then we have the masses of the people that perhaps did not use their gun when they were evacuated, or did not have a gun when they were evacuated. They say, why didn't they have a gun? Well, they were considered psychiatric, or they were afraid of the mass shooting, or they were afraid of using a gun, or they're not Sagittarian. What do you want? Not Scorpionic either. They don't. They're Piscean. They don't like to fight. Okay, they don't have a Mars in Pisces or anything like that. They're not fighting people. Okay, what would Sagittarius say? Yeah, but before you get to that, Mercury Sag is that inherent tension between childlike curiosity and big worldly philosophy, applying skill and a legacy that's supposed to hold for like the next millennia, the need to adjust versus the desire to be viral and all-encompassing. Okay, Jupiter Sagittarius does want to get at the ultimate cosmic truth. And it's changing. So there is a duality also to the Sagittarius. It's not just the Pisces, it's not just Gemini, it's not just, Libra. It's also the duality of I'm a man, I'm an animal. Okay? The nature of my desire always wants to have a conquest on a philosophical level because I'm human. And that pertains to my every action or to my communication style. Mercury, Sag, keyword is big talkers. Sagittarius is pretty much about having your head in the clouds, and Mercury is words. So big talkers. So sometimes you need big talkers. And sometimes you just can't rely on them. You can't rely on them not because they necessarily lie on purpose, but because the nature of the entire cosmic truth is changing all the time. Otherwise, they would not be interested in the cosmic truth. So there's a presupposition the truth is both fixed and changing. Okay, it's as complicated as Pisces, just with fire. Now, Mercury also rules the media. So everything is exaggerated. You can go viral with that one, okay? Everything that you say on the media it's not exaggerated necessarily in the sense that it really isn't that big, okay? It just becomes very big. There's something that, that would be said in Mercury Scorpio, and that would be the clique of people who would call conspirators, and write about it to each other, and kind of like, mutually, we call it mutual masturbation on the truth. And then there is the Sagittarian, where, now that becomes viral. Now everybody's talking about it, and it is something that people are supposed to be talking about. Philosophies across about children. Okay, I began this episode with basically looking at the child development when I talked about Mercury. There was also the Mercury Sag speaking into the energy of the episode, which is why I always give the timeline for when I begin to record. So the philosophies around childhood, around children, around climate change as well. Okay, if we talk about the changing of the seasons. The wisdom from a herb. Okay, so it's going with the alchemy and the magician qualities of Mercury, and emphasizing on the spiritual, the holistic, the philosophical. If you think about psychedelics or consuming nature to get enlightenment, even Mercury Sagittarius can give you that. Your mundane, let's say rosemary or lavender, let's take a Mercury thing, lavender, okay, now becomes a teacher, a plant teacher. And it can be your lavender. It doesn't have to be your DMT or MDMA. I don't even know that. It's like, I was listening a lot to Terence McKenna. Not compatible with trying these things. And I still get confused from which is which. Now we talk about economy, because Mercury is also exchange of something, okay? Trade. It's not trade like the scales, like Libra, although it's triplicity ruler of Libra. But it's trade in the sense of exchanging goods. It's not about comparing goods. It's about exchanging goods. So it's also about marketing. Okay, can I sell you these glasses that I don't wear in 10,000 euros that you don't have? Very likely I can, because you don't have the 10,000 euro. Well, unless we are in Sagittarius, where you will emphasize on the philosophy of making this transaction. Because it isn't true. Okay, then we could talk about paradoxes. Okay, Mercury Sagittarius can be about exploring paradoxes. Schrödinger, that. There was Nick Dagan Best was quoting something from the astrology podcast. Mind you, I live in Israel. I did not watch the November episode. Like, I just didn't want to get mad because I don't know what they're talking about. They can't talk about anything when it's politics related. So, but the thing is, there was something you talk about this the Schrödinger of amazing or something like that. And a day before that, I was posting, not a day, a couple of hours before that, I was posting a video about the kid in another channel about my kittens and an avocado, treating avocado. I was like, this is Schrödinger's avocado with kittens. And now I'm like, oh my God, this is so paradoxes, because Mercury is about this trickery and Sagittarius is about philosophy. So the philosophy of trickery and a philosophy of it is, it isn't, it's a lie, it's a truth, the state, okay, the state of things, okay, the chemistry, the chemical state of things, the being state of things, And so it's kind of like to be or not to be. And Mercury is kind of like, it's funny, it's jokey, it's jokery. Okay. So you think about Schrodinger's cat. This is very Mercury Gemini. It's Schrödinger. Maybe they were talking about this in the astrology podcast. Like I haven't watched the episode, so I don't know. So the thing is that you get exaggerated truths, big lies, big truths, and fight around them. And the truth is changing. Okay. Trying to get at a philosophical truth or to convey a philosophical truth. So trying a couple of communication techniques, imagery. Okay. Memes are going to be big memes. Okay. Because the meme is a very mercurial way of communicating. You need a couple of words and an image juxtaposed and the relation between them. Look how Mercury Sag, this is so meta. It's very Mercury Sag. So trade to do with children and different philosophies of child labor. I was just watching Akage Joy, and she talked about like how being hardworking in the West could be considered lazy in Uganda or in her village. And she was talking about the children from a very young age. They carry I think it's like a water, like big bottles of water or something, like a container. And as they age, they have like bigger weights and bigger weights. And at 12, they can do pretty much all jobs. And she said to other people, it can be considered child labor. But for us, this is a way of life. And me kind of thinking about, well, if I lived in a place where the water were actually clean without fluoride and the fruits were actually organic and accessible and I had validation from a community, would I be considering this hard work to do that? Or would I be the kind of like, the Dale point of it where, hey, I'm unseen, I don't belong, or something like that. So it's kind of like, well, what do we consider child labor? Okay, the philosophy expansion of it and the lightness of the issue. Things become a bit lighter because we add more, but then they also become more viral. Okay, we add more fire to the air, and you can have an explosion, but you can also have a philosophical light discussion in the midst of everything. So it's a much needed enlightening of the situation, but it can also be escapist. And this is not a Pisces escapist, it's more the fact that we enjoy philosophizing so much when it's like, hey, there are multiple genocides going on right this very moment. But on the other hand, we can pay attention to the bigger picture through the details, and we can convey messages and find the freedom of speech in new ways. Okay? So freedom of speech is a big deal. So there can be a discussion over the philosophy of it, but it could also be actual praxis of the freedom of speech and expansion of that. Not at all concerning the person who is speaking right now. It's absolutely not. So there is, or you can have exaggerated use of the hands. People are going to look a lot more into the hand gestures that people make. Are they from this cult, from that cult? Okay, think about the hand gestures, but also have kind of like an air, a philosophy into it, an air into the fire that can be both more fundamentalistic or necessarily, or actually tending to it virally, but it can also be more room for doubt, more perspectives on the issue, on the habit, on the scale, on children, and on economy, agreements, on the nature of agreements, on the nature of communication. And again, this is not the nature in the scorpionic sense, it's the nature in the philosophical sense, okay? The nature of nature. It's a good combination to philosophize on simple tasks, on mundane things. It's actually a great combination for philosophy. We have to remember that this could be very useless. But this uselessness is also useful. Because if you constantly focus on what is happening in front of your eyes, first of all, you don't see any other layer of it. And then you use words and you write documents that for another culture, for another time, for another context are totally incompatible. And also you are not feeling grateful to be alive in all of this, or grateful for the little things. What do we have in such worldly conditions? We have to be grateful for the little things. It's kind of like you can get it to an Eckhart Tolle kind of conversation, or you can just get it to, hey, I'm so grateful that I have little kittens playing, that I have birds diverting my attention, that I have beautiful views, that I'm so grateful to have that right this very moment. So natally, I think we kind of got the grasp of this juxtaposition. Okay, it's very good to the philosopher that it's the kind of philosophy book or paintings or writings or that you would read to get the fresh perspective of some things, the fixed, the seemingly useless, and get a breath of fresh air even within situations that are quite horrid. Okay, so as a transit, it's the same. It's just that it's transit. Okay, it's transient. And now let's take a look at what will Mercury be doing in Sagittarius. Monthly astro calendar. And we go to Mercury. So we are in November, already 15. Now we have the sextile between Venus in our home sign, which is an air sign, is Libra, and Mercury in Sag. And this is a great, it's kind of a nice, relaxing, perhaps useless, perhaps useful. Even if it's useless, it's useful right now. Relaxation into the pleasure of connecting things. Also, when you apply it. And this is the pleasure of connecting ideas. Mercury also rules court system. Okay, the pleasure of connecting concepts, which is Mercury Sag, okay, a word that is a concept between fields of studies. So there's a concept you have from heuristics that you apply it on physics and so on and so forth, or chemistry and so on and so forth. Okay, the joy of connecting fields of study. and applying, the joy of applying, okay, the connecting philosophy and let's say engineering or applied science, the joy of connecting them together and kind of like balancing out even the Jupiter Mercury itself. Is a very nice thing that's going on in the sky right now. And this is for kind of like today and tomorrow. November 21, Mercury will Mercury will trine Chiron. So a trine to Chiron is basically, if Chiron is kind of like the wound that keeps purging from itself, and you have fresh new perspectives on it. So a trine to Chiron from any planet is basically having another a touch on that wound, but in a way that is more healing than rewounding. It's not through a crisis, but it's like, oh, we're running into that again. Oh, look, here is something that can alleviate that, or that you can live with that. Okay, we can contain that. Mercury, it can be a word, it can be a concept that assists you with the chironic wound in Aries. So, and this happens in 16 degrees Sagittarius. And so it's more likely that a concept of freedom, a concept of autonomy, a concept of identity can be applied in a way that actually alleviates your struggle to be autonomous. Applied thinking. Okay. So this is a very blessed effect. It does address the wound. Okay. It does address something very, very important, which is the I amness and the wound around being, basically, and around doing you. But from a more applied philosophy or even pragmatic philosophy type of place. Mercury will then in November 26 trine the North Node, will basically also trine Aries in Aries. But it will do so from the 22nd degree. So this is actually not something, even though it's trine relations, the Nicolas Stoyanovich 22 degree is the degree of to kill and be killed. Unfortunately, that can involve children, authors, heuristic philosophers or moral philosophers, as we said, children, media people, journalists, and the issue of inclusivity is on the line. Okay, so with Aries, there's a lot of intricacy and a lot of charge to things. And with the North Node, that can be also exaggerated. So while a trine to the nodes can give us a revivifying philosophy, here, in the best of cases, it's a philosophy around killing and be killed, okay, to killing those who come to kill you, or what is the philosophy, what governs, what's the reasoning behind, what does a killer think, or so on and so forth, or what does the person who was assassinated think, or something like that. But here, this is more more difficult. Okay, and so we can unfortunately see that in worldly affairs of killing and being killed, children being killed, journalists being killed, but also journalists who are killers. We literally had this exposure of journalists who were a part of the slaughter, and who documented, participated, did not do anything to avoid or call in water or something like that, and were later found even in, like giving a kiss on the cheek to people who perform slaughter. Um, and I'm talking about not a liberation thing. It's like, no, I'm talking about the kind of things you wouldn't want to happen in your neighborhood in the name of anything. I cannot be justified by anything. So, so journalists involved in that. Okay, I don't remember was it Mercury on the 22nd degree of Scorpio, or was it just something about this Mercury that was doing that? And journalists were basically exposed for participating in horrid actions. So this one can touch on that wound once again. Okay, what do you do as a journalist? The philosophy of action as a media person, but also the role of social media, the role of children as supposed freedom fighters. Is kind of like the philosophical. This is where this episode of Mercury Sag gets way deeper and not so light at all. Then we will have on November 27, Mercury squares Neptune, while it still sextiles Venus. Okay, so it's a separating sextile from Venus, which is about to conjunct Ketu. Okay, and already it's still in orb to trine Aries and Rahu, but it squares Neptune. So this is where the lies, illusion, and disillusionment can be. There can be crisis around coverage of media or things to do with hospitals. Okay, for the Israel-Palestine, it might be a place where we will find, let's say, children buried, hidden, maybe even dead, in the Shifa hospital, okay, that is bombed by Israel and so on. So, and then there is a crisis that goes viral, or you can even be finding the missing children, but to find out that they were missing. And I think there's already a bit of evidence that people found, and they were like, oh, they were missing children, kidnapped children in that hospital. And the connection between the rulership of Neptune with hospitals, missing people, spying, health, and so on is inherently Neptune, is troubling to say the least. And this is an inherent philosophical tension of what we call for as the savior, the help, alleviating basically pain, and so on and so forth. So here we might have a crisis around that. Another thing is, by the way, we had exposure relative to children. It was the exposure of the Yemeni children that were kidnapped in Israel. Yeah, a lot of people talking about even Israel castrating Ethiopian women in 2013. Okay, of course, that was used for other purposes that might not benefit women, but it pops out. Okay, viral news is still Mercury Sag. Okay, and in this crisis with Neptune, it could be also around children and drugs. Okay, trade, kind of like monkey business trade thingy, crime organization and children, healthcare and children, kidnapping children from the welfare. You can have like a philosophical argument, or where perhaps people may talk about Hamas. They're like, well, your welfare kidnaps children, or the worldwide welfare kidnaps children on a consistent basis, and then they end up being these terrorists that bomb children and behead them, or horrid things, okay, and do it at a hospital. So it's like, here we talk about all of it. It's already, you see this crisis energy to it. And of course, trying to erase evidence and so on and so forth, missing information and a crisis around missing information. So yeah, do you have the evidence that your child was kidnapped? I had a child, he's no longer. Oh, but your child was not registered anywhere. Here's their ID. How do I know that this is not AI? Okay, these are the very type of conversations that we begin to have. There's malicious use. So, or there is a fated exposure. Now let's go to Mercury in December. Mercury in December. And well, it does enter Capricorn on December 1, so nothing much on that front. So that was what Mercury will do. Okay, since the moon right now is already in 21 degrees Sag, we don't have anything too much interesting with the moon because the moon is leaving tomorrow. Okay, so this is the transit. It's a much needed one, but it kind of culminates with those things that we can't ignore anymore. Okay, we have to have a bit of a reality check, but even by the meaning of Neptune, which is very interesting. Now let's talk about this transit or Mercury in Sagittarius around the 12 houses. So for this forecast, you read it by ascendant first, because the ascendant is you. Okay, and then the house will tell you where in your life it happens. You need to know where your Jupiter is, because Jupiter is what rules Sagittarius. Right now, Jupiter is in Taurus. Okay, so philosophy around land. Okay, children and land. Children as child labor. If I think about Akech's video, Akech Joy was about children in Uganda working as from age 12, doing all the labor with the community. Okay, it's very much Jupiter in Taurus while Mercury is in Sagittarius. So conceptualizing things in different lands, foreign lands, the land, the humor. Another thing that came up was many people tell, I guess also Palestinians will get, Palestinians for sure they will get that, because people tell them, oh, go back to all the Arab countries that you are. Like they are as wanted as the Jews in Europe in the 1930s. So this is a genuine problem. And so for Jews, they get the same, go back to Europe. Okay, some Jews are from Arab countries, but okay. And so I wrote as a joke, so it's kind of like tagged the Dutch embassy in Israel. I was like, since so many people tell me to go back to the European country I came from, it's the closest is Netherlands, and I'm waiting for my keys to my public housing. So, which is a very sensitive issue in Netherlands right now. So that type of a joke about the foreign country, and a certain philosophy, kind of like, let's apply it. Okay, the joking and the joker, right? Okay, let's apply it. Give me my keys to my public housing in Netherlands. I'm gonna go back to Netherlands. Okay, let's for the sake of entertainment. Okay, but then what do you know? You get the keys and you kind of like, where is actually both are 2030 unsafe. So did we think about jokes in foreign lands? I was at the airport for my Mars return, and I met a woman who is not Israeli and not Jewish, and she was leaving to Dubai. She was leaving Israel for good. And she actually had a globe around her phone. Because think about the globe as this Jupiterian Sagittarius, kind of the world kind of thingy, and a phone as a technology, as applied technology to communicate with people. And she was telling me she's leaving, nothing holds her here. And so she was telling me about a friend that she has who is Jewish in Boston. And there I was sitting at the very closed airport with two planes. That's it. Nearly only El Al flies, which is an Israeli airline. And It was very gloomy atmosphere. But I said I have Mars in the ninth house. I gotta be at the airport for my Mars return. And she was telling me about this Jew friend in Boston. There I am sitting in Israel that could be, bombed everywhere at any given moment. Said, and my immediate reaction was like, oh my God, this is so unsafe there. So, and I was genuine, and then I was just laughing at myself. Okay, that's very much the spirit of the times. So Jupiter is now in Taurus. So this is what we get for this transit. So it's other lands, other cultures, children in other lands. Is it safe by your lands? The humor of being in Israel and thinking about how unsafe it is in Boston. Um, the applied kind of joke, okay, to tagging the embassy. It's really like doing it way big. It is tagging the embassy. I'm waiting for my public housing in Netherlands. So, and what if they actually do it? I was like, I don't know. I kind of like it this place if it's safe. I kind of like this place. I like the Israeli sun, I don't know if it's safe there. So, but it's very much doing something for the sake of it, being playful, and Taurus is also about economy. Okay, thinking about talking about the economy, public housing and stuff like that. But it can also be social credits for the digital coins, kind of like the philosophy of it all. Women, things of the Venusian, our senses, women, stuff like that. So, and thinking about relationships, the apply, the communication in relationships. I had a couple of things that tended to communication in relationships and kind of applying that on, I don't know, international conflicts or something. On the healthcare system. Wow, that's very, very much aligned, attuned. So, first of all, you read the ascendant, then sun and moon. Okay, sun's more like the personality, who you are becoming, what kind of like what you're going to do in this world. And the moon is more like your psychological state, what you need to feel safe, and so on and so forth. And then you read it for your stellium. So if you have a couple of planets in Sagittarius, you're going to be mostly affected because Mercury is going to conjunct them one by one. Okay. And the moment of silence Hall of Fame goes to the people with the stellium in Capricorn. That Pluto will soon be leaving you alone for, if you survive this since 2008, then Pluto will decrease its pressure as it ingresses into Aquarius. But yes, the Hall of Fame were for the people who had a stellium in Capricorn. I actually knew such a person. That's it. Ascendant. Let's do it. Ascendant Gemini. Okay, so Mercury is ruling you. Mercury is ruling you, and Mercury is now in your 7th house. You are at your partner's or your enemy. Okay, what you try to do, your life path is now going through other people, that which is the other, the Gegenüber, okay, the person in front of you, the person that you're talking to. And so you're going to feel it on one-to-one relations a lot, okay? So you might have funny conversation, and Jupiter is in your 12th house. So there's something about your life and what you do, the communication, the philosophy around it. You could be a bit undermining yourself or experiencing some sort of a loss. It could be a loss of a partnership. Or a loss of a philosophy because of a conversation with a partner. But your partner can kind of get to you through your 12th house. So there can be something unsettling, inconvenient around this whole thing, but quite humorous as well. So that's pretty much your one-to-one relations, but also your dream state, your bedroom can be affected by those things. Okay, and Jupiter is retrograde right now, so there's a lot of reflecting to do, going over things. Ascendant's Cancer. Mercury is going through your 6th house. So right now you could be chatting with your pets a lot. You could be conversing or coming to agreements with enemies, or being courting, or like some worst cases. But also it's about the details of your health, your physical health. Okay, whether it's what herbs you use, what technology, how technology affects your health. Jupiter is in your 11th house. You can have an agenda around this thing. Okay, oh, how the phone is affecting my health. And now I must do something about it. So I have a lecture on Zoom on how the phone is affecting my health. Okay, that can be very much something that happens with this transit. And it is just something applied to it, or all the health um, of children, okay, or if you do some service work with children, or if you have children that are your employees, okay, you want to double check that, because children that say something and they're not that age, and you could be, if it's a business and you have employees, your employees can be in the 6th house here, and you can have some child walking in and creating a lot of troubles for you. They're gonna be very public, okay, but it's just a child. Ascendant Leo. So for you, Mercury is going through your 5th house. And so it can be something that your child does, but the ruler is in your 10th house. So what you do for fun, you become known for. And it can be something nice and benefic right now. It can be a skill that you develop and gives you a promotion, or helps you to tackle if you're going over through something with your boss, or with you as a boss, or with one of your parents, or you as a parent. Now Mercury can actually assist that. But if it's something that will not age well, you might also be known for it. Okay, it's like, oh, that person that made that mistake on social media, posting a picture of them, I don't know, at the casino, in Afghanistan, and then you're fired. So this is house of gambling, children, fun, what you do for fun, um, and creative projects. So in the best of cases, you can have a little bit of a creative project that you've actually become known for, um, that may have to do with applying skill or applying a philosophy or something like that. Ascendant Virgo. So for you, Mercury is going through your 4th house, and this is also ruling your ascendant. You are at home right now. But Jupiter is in your 9th house. So you could be summering someplace, okay? You could be summering in New Zealand, because right now it's summer in New Zealand. It's becoming summer in New Zealand, if it really is now with this climate world. So your home is also abroad right now, okay? Or you're planning a trip abroad, or you're watching movies, because Mercury is also pictures or moving pictures, about travel from home. So or you talk about it with your family, or somebody is abroad, or you're having conversations or technology with somebody abroad, that kind of catches your eye, and that can be overall a nice time. Just make sure that everybody stays safe towards the end of the passage, towards the end of November. Ascendant Libra. So for you, Mercury is in the 3rd house with Jupiter in the 8th. You might be borrowing stuff from your neighbors, or borrowing stuff to your neighbors. This is also 8th house, okay? Or you might be looking at intergenerational wealth with your siblings. Hopefully it's not the actual death of someone, but it's maybe writing a will, or like kind of looking at how you manage intergenerational wealth. If there are things that were wiped under the carpet, Jupiter will definitely enlarge them so that you will need to tackle that. And there is a chance to communicate with your siblings around things that were swiped under the rug. Okay. Alternatively, you're borrowing blue shirts from your sibling or so. Okay, from a young sibling, because I don't know, the laser stuff. Um, Ascendant Scorpio. So for you, Mercury is going through the second house with Jupiter in your seventh. Okay, so going over money issues, values, and possessions, or expenditures with your partner. Okay, it could simply be budgeting your relationship, or partnership, or business partnership. Um, and then you want to do it in the beginning. You want to do it right now, because when we get to the end of November, we already get the square with Neptune, and things are going to be way less manageable. Okay, you're just not going to have all the facts. If you need to sign contracts with your partner, um, then that can be it. And there can also be a little bit, when Mercury is also associated with trickery, and trickery and trades, it is associated with thieves. Um, so, if it's business partners, who kind of like, people could be stealing or trying to trick one another, but that's more like the dark phases of it. You're just going over your budget together. If you have a joint assets, um, it's also for you, it's the second house. It's your money. It's how you make your money, how you spend your money. And kind of go over it with your partners. You could be actually dating someone. Okay, with Jupiter in your seventh now, you could be dating someone and kind of going over your philosophies of spending money and making money. Okay, does my partner expect me to work more so than I'm willing to work, or less so that I'm willing to work? Does my partner expect me to pay for our dates? Do I expect my partner to pay for our dates? When do we, is there a transition around this? Philosophy of those things, and also philosophy of relationships. Okay, you could be dating and kind of matching the philosophy and your values in relationships. They can be the issue of possession, which is very funny with Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is about freedom, but you want to possess freedom, and you might want to possess the freedom of your partner in a certain way. And so you could be possessive about freedom. You could also be possessive about the freedom of your partner. Is my partner free enough for me to have a relationship with him or her? Okay, so again, it is satirical. Okay, it's Mercury in Jupiter's and Jupiter in Taurus. Okay, there's just something funny and lighthearted, but also really satirical about the entire yoga. So ascendant Sagittarius. Mercury is going through your first house, and the ruler of your chart is right now in the sixth house. Okay, so if you have a health condition, you might look at technology, at your how do you apply your practice, how do you work on your shoulders, your hands, as well as sound. Okay, the technology around sound, which sounds are good for you, which sounds are not. You're gonna feel it on your body, the herbs that you're using. um, or you may study, kind of like, oh, lavender doesn't just smell nice, it is also good for invoking my sensuality and relaxing. Oh, it invokes my sensuality because it relaxes my nervous. I'm not so stressed anymore, so I'm more erotically inclined. And it's kind of like those type of things. Overall, very light-hearted position. Now, because Mercury is also ruling your seventh, not just your seventh, so you could have somebody approaching you, okay, for an actual viable relationship. You could actually meet someone when they approach you, It is like a Mercury return. You could actually meet a person, and the moon is now growing. So as long as the moon is growing, this can actually be interesting time for you to meet up with a significant person, and they're going to approach you if that is the case. So pay attention to the people who approach you. That are mercurial. You might they be this one might be more than just a fling. There's just something so nice about having a seventh house Gemini, isn't it? When you're a Sagittarius first house, it's kind of like, I like freedom. They like to play. They're going to constantly challenge me, and things are going to constantly change around the relationship. I might be able to be free with them. So yeah. So ascendant Capricorn. For you, this whole parade is happening in your 12th house with Jupiter in your 5th. That means that Mercury is ruling also your 6th house and your 9th house. Okay, to be healthy right now, you basically need a vacay. You need to study a new philosophy, or have something altering your religion. Okay, but that parade is happening. Either you have a lovely, interesting, godly or outer-worldly time in the bedroom, which is like the best signification that could be with this one, with a romantic partner. I will save the jokes for the 5th house and the 12th because they're too dark, and completely inappropriate, and totally triggering. So I triggered myself. So the thing is that 12th house is like a blind spot. Okay, so if you're feeling mentally unwell and physically unwell, and you don't know what it is, it's very likely that you need a vacation or you need to change your worldview. Okay, and with Jupiter in the 5th house, first of all, it might affect your children, actually, because 5th house is children. So you could be feeling mentally unwell, but actually the child senses that, or it affects the relationship with the child or something like this. But there's also, you could be needing to take a vacation where there are pets, for example. The 6th house is your physical health, and it's also pets. So I'm thinking about roads. Okay, there are many cats. I don't know if still, but there's many cats there, and and it's a vacation. Then you would be turning the 12th into a hotel rather than like a hospital or a jail. Again, it's a transit, but yes, it's very likely not going to jail. But it could be sort of an exile or a retreat. And it's better to have some pets, some birds around you with this. You're going to be feeling better if you are taking a vacation, if you're traveling abroad, if you're going to a hotel. And it might be that your child is going to suggest that, or it's going to improve upon the communication of your child, or your child is sensing your kind of like your 12th house, okay? Or that you're worried about your child, or you're worried about a creative project, or you're worried about the fun and joy in life. Maybe you feel like, oh, where is the fun and joy in my life? What's the last time you've taken a vacation? Oh, well, it's so dangerous out there. Would you live next to a tourist site that is currently open? Would you like to try and go there? Okay. So it's all of these. Okay. You can get around the 12th by visiting the 12th from a retreat, a bedroom, and a vacation. Okay, you could be changing your philosophy around children. Okay, so at this time, or what's if your philosophy around children, around fun, around creative project, around romance as well, is unhealthy to you, you might get a chance to become more aware of it through the entire Jupiter transit in Taurus. And Mercury is kind of like, oh, there's where my physical health get into the business. And it's like, oh, when I'm doing something that's fun for me, I actually feel more physically healthy. Oh, I feel more healthy and more optimistic when I'm around this bird. Okay, maybe I'll just adopt a bird. Yeah, I don't want the bird to be in a cage. Like, okay, let's just grow trees and then we'll have birds. Okay, Jupiter also rules trees and Taurus rules land. So it's like, oh, where can I live next to a forest? I can feed the birds and so on and so forth. Ascendant Aquarius. So for you, Taurus is the fourth house and Sagittarius is the 11th. So 11th house, your colleagues, your crowd-funded stuff, your kind of like your agenda. It's one of the legacy houses because like it's kind of like your agenda that you advance. If you were an activist, what would you be an activist for? It's kind of like your 11th house is allies, colleagues, but also enemies. Okay, so that kind of like sphere. And with Mercury going through there, so you again might be using technology. You can have a conference over Zoom, or you might be having some sort of a social agenda to do with children or the economy or technology and the economy, social credit score, division of land, and housing, of course, because Jupiter, the ruler of your 11th house, is in the 4th house. Now, you could be attending a conference from home. It's very likely, like attending a Zoom conference or lecturing or attending that from home. Or alternatively, you could be having a social agenda to do with housing and kind of like a technological city. So you're going to be pro the 15-minute city. You're going to be one of the people like, I want the 15-minute city. I don't know why you're muttering about that. Like, I want a social credit score. I'm pretty much comfortable with having my fingerprint. And then, Mercury is only transiting Sagittarius, and then it's kind of like, you find yourself in December kind of like, what was I thinking when I bought this property? I can't freaking enter my own house without my fingerprint, and it's winter. I have gloves. Okay, so beware of the what was I thinking if you make a purchase, if you make a big purchase like purchasing land. Okay, don't buy into the 15-minute city ghettos. But I don't know if you're good talking with, because your ascendant Aquarius to begin with. If you're fixed on something, it's not for me to change that. And it's not because of Saturn; it's because of Aquarius. I hear you, people. So the thing is that what you believe now could be applicable for you, a philosophy that you think could be applicable for you might not age well with this transit. Okay, that's the only concern that I have. You're actually making a purchase around housing. If there is any way that but you might fatally lose the deal or something like that when we have the crisis with Neptune. And if so, it's the loss is your gain. Ascendant Pisces. So Piscean folks, Mercury is going through your 10th house. You can see the broadcaster is very likely a Pisces ascendant because it just expands on doing something public. And Mercury is ruling your 4th house. I'm broadcasting from my home. So Taurus is your 3rd house. And I'm actually looking at my garden, at my yard, or at the yard of the places. To me, it's my yard. I don't know. But that is a very attuned to the yoga, to the configuration. So for you, Mercury is going through your 10th house. It's ruling your 7th and 4th. So you might get a promotion, you might be thinking about a job, you might be communicating with your boss, okay? And your boss could be your sibling at this point, which could not age well because this is just a transition of something new. Then you want to make sure you're not signing contracts, signing deals. Other than that, you might be known for talking about things to do with technology, with trade, with children, with skills, painting, and so on and so forth. If it's natal for you, you might meet a partner at a place where you are appearing to the public, okay? Uh, but then it's also ruling your fourth house is kind of weird. You might get a position of promotion to do with housing, or it can be kind of a nepotist position, to be frank, with this one, because this transit, because it's kind of like somebody from your home comes into your, it's like either somebody from your home is your boss, there's also a sibling, or you are the boss of your sibling, kind of being promoted in family business, stuff like that, nothing to do with me. But it's kind of a bit of a nepotist position. Your parents could be communicating. One parent communicates with the other parent because it's the tenth and fourth. It's like mother, father, or father, father, or mother, mother. So you could be talking with your parent more, or your parents could be talking around each other with this particular one. Your partner might yield your promotion. Okay, this is one of the things. Like if you get a promotion, if you get to be a boss, or to converse with a boss, there's just something that runs in the family here. On the dark side, it can be very nepotistic, but then it can actually be fruitful. Okay, somebody helps you with the connection, so you can have an income. So it can be one of those situations, and in World War, might not be the time, or you could be considering about the philosophy of your working relations or your public image. And you might have adjustments to your public image. You might have a philosophy of why I am the way I am publicly. Okay. Yes, third house, your business. You might change the image of your business, or you might have a project to do. Yeah, with being the spokesperson for something of a business sort. It's kind of like third house, philosophy of communications, gardening. Okay, you might do gardening at home more so than usual. It's a great time to do gardening, and the sun has left the 22nd degree. I might do some gardening myself. Ascendant Aries. So Sagittarius is your ninth house, and Taurus is your second. Okay, so you could be getting a grant to study something. Mercury rules your third, and it rules your sixth. You could be visiting, you could be owning or buying some sort of like an academic institution. And everything is an academic institution today. Everybody has a couple of courses like the Academy of so and so, which is not a bad thing, but we have to make sure we don't become like Ivy League, because then we have Oxford students that say that Great Britain did not bomb German civilians, and we don't want to be known as academic people when this is academia. So, we have Stanford maps of from the river to the sea, with the river painted as the sea, and then an arrow to the sea, which is basically into the desert or the river. And that was Stanford. So again, you might want to, if you're buying an academic institution, just make sure it's nothing like Ivy League or because you might lose money now. So, the other things, you could be just buying yourself a ticket to go abroad. Okay, you could be buying a ticket, you could be relocating, but it's kind of like the abroadness comes to you. Here's something of the ninth house, maybe hosting a guru, or maybe you're hosting a guru, or you're paying for a restaurant, and there's a guru or a teacher or a lecturer, a professor that kind of comes in, and you kind of like either you pay for them, your siblings pay for them, because the ninth house is coming to you. Okay, this Jupiter from the ninth is coming to your second, or you're spending money on education, or you're given a grant. Although grant is more the eighth house, but with this Mars is combust, it's not Kazimi. So what's more here? There you might get a visitor from abroad. Okay, somebody visits you from abroad, visits you from the academia, stuff like that. And the conversation has some sort of a sibling-esque undertone, communicational or perhaps business. And it's kind of like the broadness is in the neighborhood. It's kind of a nice transit when you think about that. Okay, Ascendant Taurus, last ascendant for today. Sagittarius is the 8th house, and Jupiter is in your first. Okay, so you could be getting inheritance because Mercury rules the second, or you could be investing in long-term investment in something. Don't get tripped by the house flippers. You're definitely scheduled, much like Ascendant Libra. Yes, much like Ascendant Libra, you're scheduled to check in on your intergenerational wealth, your debt, your 401k, your life insurances, or you could get somebody, you borrow something from someone, or you you're gifted something from someone, and that can be a signification of that. Mercury does rule your second as well, which means that there can be some exchange, or maybe you're changing your investment strategy, or you're changing the relation between being reliant more on your income to being reliant on your supposed passive income, or stuff like that. You could be learning something like this. That could be a very interesting time for you. Okay, just beware of the end of November where things get weird and unreliable. So if you have to sign anything, you might want to do it, sooner than later. So yes, this is the forecast for today. And that was for the 12 ascendants. So it's a lighter, brighter episode with it's already Sun, Night, and Venus Day. And I release y'all. Bye-bye.